has been a year unlike any other that we've experienced. We are so glad to be able to be here to celebrate your milestones, and hope that we can make this day and this weekend as meaningful for you as we can in this virtual setting. So with that, just a few housekeeping rules. This session is being recorded so that we can share these presentations with your classmates that aren't joining us here today. We're asking that you please keep yourself muted during the presentation, and allow us to call on you for Q&A when the time is allowed at the conclusion of the Dean's presentation. And then again, if you could please put your name, your SAIS affiliation, your class year, and your current location in the chat. That can help us through this, but we will be moving into class-specific breakouts at the conclusion of today's presentation. So with that, I will pause and I turn it over to Angie.
Thank you, Christina. So we're going to get started. I'm going to exit out of this screen share on my end, and then we're going to have a video to share with you all.
For a very different world. The world is changing, and so are we. Hi, I'm Elliot Cohen, Dean of Johns Hopkins SAIS. There are a number of big changes underway. We've completely reorganized ourselves. The school is no longer divided into silos. Instead, we have one staff that supports all of our faculty and our students. Our faculty can teach across very different fields. And most importantly, we're developing a new curriculum which is going to prepare students for the world of the future. We're adding new fields. We're delivering on our promise to teach leadership. These changes have a number of different dimensions. SAIS, of course, has 3 campuses in 3 different continents. Well, now it's much easier for faculty and students to move across those boundaries, both physically and in cyberspace. We're committed to meeting our students where they are, so we've tripled our online offerings, and we're making it a lot easier for students to tailor their own education to meet their needs. One of the most important qualities of a SAIS education has been experiential learning. Practicums, internships, field trips, staff rides. We've had a great record of doing those in the past, but they weren't available to everybody. Our goal is to make sure that that changes, and that they form a critical part of the education of each and every one of our students. All of these changes, some of which were not easy to make, are a great investment in the school's future. More importantly, they're an investment in your future. Change is difficult. I know that personally. I came to this school 30 years ago to create and build and develop a program and a department. And I was very successful in doing so. And now that department's going away. But even so, I know that the result of this is a stronger and better school that will prepare its students and enable its faculty to understand the world and to shape it. And that's what SAIS is all about. Our vision for the school is to prepare students to understand the crises that we cannot yet foresee and to lead the world through them. I'm excited about these changes because I know that we are enabling our faculty and our students together to understand and to meet the challenges of a new and very different century.
All right, and with that, I turn it over to Sean Ryan. Sean, if you want to please unmute yourself.
Class of 95, 25th reunion, class of 70, 50th reunion, Dean Eliot Cohen, Associate Dean William Roth, and the SAIS development and alumni relations team who make so much of this work behind the scenes. I myself am a class of 93, and I also serve on the board of advisors, which gives me an opportunity to be a part of the development and the evolution of SAIS that we're going to hear much about here in a moment from Dean Cohen. I think, I remember when my 25th reunion took place, or I should say my 20th reunion recently. I had the opportunity to not only connect with people that I went to class with, but I also had the opportunity to meet with people that were from other classes that I didn't even know had gone to SAIS. I remember meeting the first individual who turned me down from a job that I hoped to get on Capitol Hill. And I was able to engage with him in that dialogue. And that was quite exciting and interesting. And I hope much of that will happen for you, even in this virtual environment. Dean Cohen, who will give the State of the School address, really needs no introduction, but maybe as a reminder for all of us, before coming to SAIS, he taught at the U.S. Naval War College. The career that he has since had at Hopkins SAIS has spanned over 30 years. In 2007-2009, he was counselor of the Department of State, serving as a senior advisor to Secretary Condoleezza Rice, focusing on issues of war and peace, including Iraq and Afghanistan. He's a contributing editor at The Atlantic. His commentary has appeared in the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and on major television networks. He is the Robert E. Osgood Professor of Strategic Studies, and since July 1st of 2019, he is Dean of the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. Before he begins, I think maybe one comment I would just share, as a Board of Advisors member, I have the opportunity to see, Dean Cohen and thinking about and planning for and executing on what is truly a very transformational and transitional moment for the history of the school. And I think we've all learned over the last several years and through our own work and elsewhere that leadership matters. And I think I can say on behalf of the entire board and all those who support and work with the Dean that SAIS is in very good hands with Dean Cohen, and I'm very excited to hear about his remarks here, and as I'm sure all of you are. Dean Cohen.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you all for being here. I want to begin actually by thanking our terrific SAIS staff. There's no substitute, of course, for a real live reunion, but once again, I think our terrific development and alumni relations staff has put together a fantastic virtual event. I want to thank them. I want to recognize our Christian Herder Society members, Francisco Vasquez Awed, Kevin Carr, one of my predecessors, former Dean Jessica Einhorn, Jefferson Finch, David Frey, Carrie Cullen Hitt, Robert Maloney, Julia Holm Messit, and Zachariah Messit, and Susan Vonsild. Particular shout out to the 50th reunion class. Thank you for half a century of dedication to and engagement with SAIS. The reunion class committees for the 50th, 25th, and 10th reunion classes and all your work. And finally, a particularly warm personal greeting to all those former students I see listed here. It is truly wonderful to see you. I wish we were doing this in person, of course. Well, it's been only 16 months, but it is quite staggering how much we've done. I was reflecting as I was getting ready for this, for these remarks, that it's literally a year ago that we celebrated our 75th anniversary in our future home, 555 Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a moment. What I thought I would do at this point is highlight 4 areas where there have been really large changes. I'll be giving a State of the School address, which will be pretty widely distributed, but this is a summary of some of the highlights. So let me begin with curricular and organizational overhaul. We took about 2 years of study and vigorous debate. So this began really the year before I became dean. And the faculty came to, I think, 3 really critical realizations. The first is that on the one hand, there was a static market for our flagship degree, the 2-year MA, which is what most of you are alumni of. and that was not likely to change. There's been an explosion of competition in this area, but also real pressure on the population that is willing to set aside 2 full years to get a master's degree. At the same time, we began to see lots of emerging opportunities for other kinds of degrees, particularly 13, 14-month degrees, but also some longer ones as well. The second big insight was just how siloed we were, particularly in comparison with a lot of our competitors. We did a lot of benchmarking work looking at other schools. This small and wonderful school had 19 departments, and that was increasingly getting in the way of a faculty that was new and increasingly interested in crossing boundaries. What was worse, it was leading to particularly uneven and narrow student experiences. This really came out when we did survey work with our alumni. Thirdly, we concluded that our curriculum desperately needed an overhaul and an update to make it more relevant. So what have been some of the big moves? Well, we've broadened our portfolio of degrees. So we have the Master's in International Economics and Finance. That's a 1-year plus degree. We have the Doctorate in International Affairs for practitioners, people at places like MITRE and RAND. We have several online degrees, a Master's in Sustainable Energy, a Master's in Global Risk, and others in the works. So we're broadening our portfolio. In our most radical and probably controversial move, we've gone from 19 departments to 0, consolidating all of our program staffs into a single school staff with focus areas replacing departments and encouraging the growth of research centers and initiatives. And this enabled us, the purpose was not financial savings, but that enabled very considerable financial savings. But more importantly, it's making for a much more efficient and organized school. We're creating a suite of core courses, which will now be required, that are going to be taught by top faculty. And the thing that's so exciting about that is they're going to be new, they're going to be different, and we've decided that they're not going to have titles that would be familiar to a student of, say, political science in the 1980s. These are going to be different. We're adding new areas for the flagship degree, including data analytics, which we did not used to have, leadership and ethical decision-making, and capstone experiences for all students in that flagship 64 credit degree. And we're exploring many different kinds of partnerships to do that. And finally, we decided, and we've begun setting ourselves up so we can teach students part-time, and we can do so in hybrid formats. In other words, where they may take some courses in presence, others virtually, but also online. There's a distinction, which I'm sure you're aware of, between a virtual course, that's kind of what we're doing now, using Zoom or some other platform to take a traditional kind of lecture course or seminar course and simply put it into the virtual world, and a genuinely online course, which is designed from the get-go to be taught online, usually in an asynchronous format. So that's one big set of changes. Second big set of changes, of course, was our reaction to the coronavirus pandemic. Last March, we had to make a very sudden shift to completely virtual instruction, and it was extraordinary what our staff and our faculty were able to do. We had really not much more than about 10 days notice. Over the summer, we had to make a very difficult decision, which was the right decision, which was to stay completely remote in the fall. We wrestled with that. We planned for a partial opening. We concluded we couldn't do it safely. And again, it was the right decision. But we did a lot of other things. And that included our new online and distance learning office, creating a roughly 20-hour or so course called Teaching from a Distance to prepare all of our faculty to take full advantage of tools like Zoom or Panopto and others. And furthermore, we developed the technology or assembled the technology to enable us to do this well. So we've taken 8 of our classrooms, which obviously we're not using, some of the smaller seminar rooms, And we're using those as studios, basically, which faculty can come into. They're sanitized, and they can teach from that. As awkward and as hard as it is to say, the truth is there have been some remarkable positive consequences of this. You may have seen a story, I believe it's in the print edition of the Washington Post today, it was online a day or so ago, about what we call HNC in exile. We were not able to get students into China. That was because of Chinese restrictions on student entry. So we picked up a whole bunch of our Hopkins Nanjing Center students and faculty, and we moved them to Bologna, because Bologna is open. That's the only campus, by the way, on the in the Hopkins system, which is actually open and teaching, other than some laboratories. And it's been a terrific success. They're being taught in Chinese. And of course, they're experiencing Bologna. This has been a tremendous learning experience for all concerned. We're even beginning to explore the possibility of, are there kind of combined Nanjing Center, Bologna, SAIS Europe degrees that we can create. A year ago, we had zero online courses of the kind that I've talked about. Today, we have 24. And we're building more as we speak. Actually, I'm going to be teaching an online course, Shakespeare on Politics, next spring. And this has been, first, it's just an extraordinary achievement for our faculty and the ODL department to take care of and to make happen. But it means we can now reach whole new groups of potential students all over the globe. And it's much easier for us to engage students part-time as well, if that's what they want. Like everybody else, we're finding that there are some functions that work just as well or even better in a virtual environment. So for example, our global careers operation, led by Jean-Emile Jourdan, is really discovering that actually it's much more efficient and effective to operate virtually, and they probably will not go back to much in the way of in-person operations even after COVID lifts. Similarly with marketing and communications, we hosted a fantastic seminar. It was really a conference for about a day and a half on world order after COVID, which we then turned around within 6 weeks into a book from Hopkins Press with all kinds of luminaries present. That reached 4,000 people across the world. And even smaller events, when I was able to invite former Secretary of State Rice to speak at SAIS over the summer, we got hundreds of people attending, again, from all over the world, all over Hopkins. And so we're finding that there's actually a lot that we can now take advantage of. And finally, we're just finding that staff cooperation across all three campuses is so much more effective in this environment. In the old days, when we had a staff meeting, the DC leadership would be in a physical room, and our SAIS Europe and Nanjing Center colleagues would be on Zoom. And frankly, it's not the same thing. Well, obviously today we're all kind of living in this Hollywood Squares environment that we're on right now. But the truth is, it means everybody engages as equals. We're used to sharing much more information, and it opens up all kinds of exciting venues for taking advantage of the fact that we are one school with campuses on 3 very different continents. Third bucket of issues is diversity. Of course, like really every part of the United States and certainly every university, after the killing of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, we were prompted entirely properly to take a close look at where SAIS is. I appointed a committee which I very deliberately named after George Kroll. That will be a very familiar name to many of you. George was a beloved figure at SAIS. He was the first African-American who was a senior leader at SAIS. And I knew him for about 10 years, actually a little bit less than that, for about 7 years before he passed away way too young. And those of you who will remember George will remember an extraordinarily sunny, optimistic, forward-looking personality, and that's how I wanted us to approach it. I got a very long report last month. I'm looking at it. I've asked colleagues, both senior administrators and faculty, to take a look at it. And I'm going to be formulating a very substantial response. But I thought I'd give you a couple of headlines. Obviously, I'm not going to give everything away, but I want to give you at least 4 thoughts about how I approach this. First thing is, I'm really interested in tangible results. There's a place for symbolism, I think, particularly as we deal with the many different aspects of diversity, but I'm really more interested in results that we can really measure. Secondly, it is critical, I believe, if we're to make the kind of push that we need to make on diversity, that it's a whole of community effort. And by that, I mean faculty, staff, and students. And so, for example, if, as I believe we will, we begin trying to undertake initiatives with the local Washington, D.C. community, getting high school students who might not otherwise think about international affairs engaged, I want the students to be deeply engaged in that. I want the faculty to be deeply engaged in that as we conduct searches and so forth. Thirdly, for me, the critical items as we think about diversity have to do with recruitment of faculty and recruitment of students. Our staff is actually quite diverse. Our faculty, much less so. And our students, it varies in a number of ways. And some of that is actually pretty subtle. It can be whether students feel that they're going to be adequately mentored when they come here. It turns out that's a big issue with first generation students who are the first in their families to go to college. And then finally, I think one of the big ideas here is the development of pipelines. Pipelines for future students, particularly at SAIS, but not just at SAIS, but in other words, for young people who want to engage in international affairs, and for future faculty. And I think there's a lot of good work and some very interesting ideas for what we can do there. Finally, let me say something about our relationship with Hopkins overall and about 555 Penn. So I said at our commencement, rather at the 75th anniversary, that I've always thought of SAIS as being a little bit like Texas, you know, briefly independent, and we never quite got over it. I remember very clearly when I first came to SAIS in 1990, the attitude towards Central Johns Hopkins was basically, we want you to take care of our retirement funds. We want your health care plan. We want you to handle interlibrary loan. And other than that, stay out of our hair. And this extraordinarily decentralized university operated in that way. It's not the way Hopkins operates anymore, although it is still quite decentralized. But I think it's really important, I think, for all of our alumni, as well as members of faculty, staff, and students to understand just the enormous amount of support that we've gotten from Central Hopkins. I'll just mention 4 items, although there are a lot more than this. First, a tremendous amount of direct support to our change process, starting with President Daniels hosting a retreat for 100 faculty and staff for several days to take a close look at the school, some consultants who would probably be out of our price range, and more direct support in terms of financial assistance where we needed it. Secondly, the creation of the Henry Kissinger Center, which would not have happened without the very direct engagement of President Daniels in fundraising. Support for some of the things we've had to do to adjust to coronavirus. We've given a hardship tuition, a coronavirus hardship tuition credit. That's the university's helping out with that. Or our shift to the virtual and online world. We have access to over $500,000 in technology for new studios, which I described. And we've taken advantage of that, plus things like the Aronson professors and the Bloomberg Distinguished Professors. These are professors that we share with other divisions of the university and that essentially are being centrally funded for the most part, not absolutely entirely, but the result is we can get on the cheap some extraordinarily distinguished faculty. And that's just the beginning. I could go on a lot longer. So I think it's really important for us to understand just how much the university has been pouring into SAIS. And of course, nothing is bigger than 555 Penn, which just kind of dropped into our laps. And I don't think I'll ever forget getting that phone call a couple of years ago from President Daniels at his characteristic hour of 7:30 in the morning, letting us know that this was going to happen. That is moving forward, that project. It will, the reason why is that the primary donor, as the provost likes to say, writes checks that don't bounce. So we're probably going to be moving in the summer of 2023, which is not all that far off. We're in an extremely intense planning phase already. I meet on roughly a weekly basis with the president's advisor on national capital planning, Professor Lenny Rutkow from the Bloomberg School of Public Health. There are planning committees, and we're really getting into the nitty-gritty of what this thing is going to look like. We're going to be about 70% of the occupants of this building. It's going to be a Hopkins building. But we're getting special attention, not only our own meetings, but we've been having a series of meetings on office placement, where we will be physically in the building. I can promise you it's going to be good. And something that I think is actually absolutely essential for the functioning of the building, where the all-important coffee shop will be. And I think we've got a great solution for that. It'll be a real social magnet for everybody at SAIS. And I think it will give to the DC campus of SAIS something that the Bolognese here are very familiar with, namely, that Giulio's Cafe, where everybody sees one another, can get together for a cup of coffee at the drop of a hat, and transact a lot of business and simply bond. 555 Penn's going to open up as well new opportunities for intra-divisional cooperation. One area is going to be executive education. We've done some of that in the past, but frankly, we don't have the resource base to do this properly. One of the things I've been pushing for is a Hopkins level effort in this regard, where I think we can really do something that other universities do not do, and that's bring together all of this university's remarkable strengths for very targeted and kind of bespoke executive education opportunities in the place that frankly has the best view in Washington, D.C. If any of you who are in the old museum building will remember what that top floor is like, it is just a spectacular location. So as you can probably tell, I am so excited about this opportunity, about the technology we'll be able to have in, the kinds of classrooms we're going to have, all the opportunities this will open up for us. And it's just terrific to think that this is in many ways around the corner. So I guess the way that I'll wrap this up and just say to you that, yeah, this division of the university has gone through some very challenging times, some very challenging budgetary times, of course, a tremendously challenging time dealing with coronavirus, as everyone else is. But I am absolutely convinced that this school's most exciting time lies ahead of us. We are really reshaping it. We're going to be in a much better shape financially, in terms of organization and process and outlook than we've ever been. And I'm building on the work of my predecessors, to each and every one of whom I'm deeply grateful. But I'm just saying that really the best is yet to come. And I'm delighted that you'll be coming along with us for the ride. So with that, I think Christina or Sean, tell me where we go from here. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all.
So thank you, Dean Cohen. So to everyone on the line here, we have over 50 people, 50 alumni, proud alumni. We'll do a Q&A here for about 15 minutes or so. So if you have a question, you can send it through the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll call on you as in the order received. And as I look through, I don't see any questions yet. Maybe maybe I can get things going a little bit. Dean Cohen, maybe you know, as you look at you've been at the school for 30 years and knew about it even prior to. As you reflect on this moment in the context of that period of time, where does this moment stand in terms of its significance relative to other, what I'll call transition moments in the school's history?
Well, there's so many. Well, first, I think this is the biggest set of transitions that we've ever gone through. You know, in the past, the school evolved, which is what you want. I mean, you don't want revolutionary change with any kind of frequency. But I think the way the school evolved was people added on things. It kept its basic sort of organizational structure, which was quite informal, quite lean, and where a lot of things were done on the basis of kind of a common law approach. And there's a lot about that which made it a particularly charming place, but it also meant that we just didn't have the necessary tools for the school to do all the things that it needs to do and to really empower faculty and empower staff and empower students. And some of this is just, you know, it's the kind of work that you can only do actually in a modern technology environment. So for example, we now have a much better handle on all of our numbers, from budget numbers to recruitment numbers, than we ever have had in the past. And that's partly, you know, because of the systems that we now have in place. But I would say the other thing is, you know, one of the wonderful things about SAIS is that our history is tied in with the history of the world. And we were founded, this is a little bit of a reprise of what I said at our 75th. We were founded at a moment when Paul Nitze and Christian Herder, who were both men of vision, could see that the world was being profoundly transformed, and there was a need for a school like SAIS. And they couldn't foresee everything, but they could see a lot of it. Well, my view is we are on the cusp of changes which are in some ways as momentous as those that occurred between, let's say, 1943 and 1950, which is the founding period of the school. Whether it's the arrival of China, whether it's the development of challenges like climate change, the opening up of new domains like cyberspace, the challenge to the legitimacy and the stability of liberal democratic governance. These are all enormous challenges. And the school was founded to deal with that kind of thing. And I think what we're going to be able to do is create a school whose graduates will be able to go out and do the work of the world in meeting those challenges. So I think we're on the one hand changing for a world. You know, I love our slogan, "The world is changing and so are we," while retaining, you know, if you will, the kind of the spiritual essence of SAIS, which is what drew me to it in the first place.
Excellent. We have a question, Dean Cohen, from Rika from the class of '95. Rika?
Thank you. Hi, very good to see everyone. And thank you so much for doing this. Of course, it's nothing like meeting personally, but much better than not meeting at all. So thanks very much for allowing us this opportunity. And I couldn't be more thrilled than I am to have Dean Cohen address us. As a former strategic studies student, I'm excited, happy, and I think we have found the best person for SAIS. And I am very excited about the changes that you outlined. I think this is fantastic, and a lot of this is very, very rational and very much needed. So it's very impressive. I can imagine how much work it has been and how much work it is going to be still ahead of you and the wonderful staff of SAIS. So it's very exciting times. But I have to ask you one question, which I don't understand exactly. In this, then, as a person profoundly biased towards loving or having loved to be a strategic studies student, you said that out of the 19 departments, there is none at this moment. what does it mean? How do students graduate? Do they have an affiliation or a similar kind of or how does the specialization go through for their academic times at SAIS? How does it look for them? Yeah. Will they be more strategic studies students, for instance, or that is awesome in the last reminders of that?
So let me, I'll address that, but first, for those of you who don't know, this is Ambassador Reiko Markeny, who I remember coming to the school, you know, fresh from having been a student activist against the communist government in Hungary, and who's gone on to do extraordinary things in her career. And Reiko, it's just so good to see you, even as you say, from a distance. But it's also, you know, you really embody what the school's all about. I really feel that. So look, what you're describing was unquestionably the hardest thing to do. And I have repeatedly said that, including to some of my colleagues in strategic studies. You know, I built that baby. It was my baby. I grew it from nothing, or from, you know, the remnants of an old security studies program, which was really not functioning. And so this was difficult. Let me explain some of the process, and I will directly answer your question. So one of the things the school has never really been one for benchmarking, looking at how other institutions do business. And I actually, as vice dean, Dean Nasser's kind of sent me around to look at some of our top peer competitors. And one of the things that struck me is how many of them actually have some of them have no departments. The Kennedy School of Government, for example, no departments. Many business schools have no departments. And you quickly see what some of the advantages of that are. First, you have a much more efficient staffing structure. Secondly, you are freeing professors up from administrative responsibilities. The way the old system worked, it was dependent, frankly, on finding faculty like me, somebody you could recruit at a relatively young age who would agree to spend 30 years or more running a department, essentially being a department chair. And that's on top of doing the other things we expect of SAIS professors, like teaching lots of students, being a productive scholar, and being out there in the public square. And I think it's safe to say, A, there are fewer and fewer faculty who wanted to do that or who could do that. And secondly, it's unhealthy. I mean, I, for myself, began saying to myself, you know, you're very comfortable with what this thing is now. And you don't really want to make much in the way of changes. And is that really a good thing? And the answer, I think, is pretty clearly not. Now, I should explain how basically the schema is going to work. So the new, we're calling it the 64 credit degree because although many people will do it in 2 years, some people may only be in residence 1 year and go part-time 2 years, something like that. We'll have focus areas, both functional focus areas and regional focus areas. The focus areas are being designed to be quite capacious. So we'll have one which is going to be called strategy, statecraft, and diplomacy. So it'll be quite broad. And all the courses that you're familiar with will be there, okay? So it's not as if the courses are going away. It's not as if the faculty are going away. One of the advantages of doing it that way is when we interviewed faculty, and we brought in Dr. Janice Stein, who has been the founding director of the Monk School at the University of Toronto, one of our peers, who interviewed every single faculty member. One of the things that becomes very clear when you do that work is there are a lot of faculty, there's some faculty who are very comfortable being in their narrow niche. There are also a lot of faculty, particularly the newer faculty, who said, you know, I know that I'm in development, but actually I've always had this real interest and expertise in China. And it's not really, I can't really teach a course there. or, you know, somebody who's interested in essentially, you know, actually Professor Lewis is a good example. He's did a wonderful job running our Africa studies. He said, you know, what I really love teaching is comparative politics, but there's no way for me to do that. So what we're also doing is we're stultifying our faculty by doing this. Now the question then becomes, okay, well, but what about that sense of identity? And I would say there are a number of things. First, the affinity groups that we have will continue. Secondly, what we're doing is incentivizing faculty in a variety of ways, and it's one of the reasons why development work is really important, to develop initiatives and centers which will be the hub for these kinds of interests. So the Merrill Center for Strategic Studies isn't going away. In my book, it becomes a lot more important. We have created a 3-person unit called CCEL, Co-Curricular and Experiential Learning. Part of the idea there is some of those great experiences, which, you know, you probably remember, like the staff rides, we want to make those available to more people. So if, again, this would be a little bit of inside baseball for the strategic studies alumni out there. One of the great things Strat always did was these staff rides where you go to battlefields, and they're basically decision-making studies. And in the last 20 years, we've gone internationally as well as, you know, to Civil War battlefields and so on. From the point of strategic studies, there was absolutely no incentive to open those up to students outside strategic studies. There was absolutely no incentive to create, say, several of those during spring break to service other students who would like that experience and would benefit from it. So our strategic studies students are actually not benefited when they're just hanging around people who are interested in the same things they are. Their benefit, I mean, it was frankly a lot more.
It did, I have to tell you.
Yeah. Well, the truth is, you know, when you were there, the program was a lot smaller.
Yeah, that's true.
And so on the staff rides, we did have students from other programs. In recent years, that's become much more difficult. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do is we're going to incentivize faculty to do all those same things, but to do it at scale and to make sure that all of our students have those kinds of experiences. The challenge is for us to level up. You know, when we did these student surveys, what was clear is, yeah, Strat students were very happy with what they were getting. There were a lot of other students who were not happy with what they're getting. And so that's the challenge. But I think, you know, for any given issue, whether it's the people who just want to spend time thinking China thoughts, or the people who just want to spend time thinking development thoughts, there will be an array of clubs and centers and initiatives which will allow those people to cluster. I'll just say one other thing, and because I know I've been running on and other people have questions. As I think many of you know, my wife and I spent a wonderful semester at Bologna. And one of the things I took away from that was that although, you know, people had program identities in Bologna, they identified themselves as Bolognese. Now, that's partly because Bologna is Bologna. It's also partly because of the way the place works. You know, you had Giulio's Cafe. There was a sense we're all Bologna students together. That's really what we hope to achieve in DC, that people are having this kind of common SAIS experience that will be aided immeasurably by the new building. And so, you know, the past was wonderful, but I really do firmly believe that the future will be even better. And like I said, this wasn't done without a little bit of heartache on my part too, but also with no doubt whatsoever that it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Fascinating. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Reiko. Thank you. Jerry Wright. Jerry, you've got a question. You might be on mute, Jerry. Oh, coming off mute. Jerry, you're still on mute. I can see you talking. There you go.
Thank you, Dean Cohen. I came to SAIS in 1968, and that was coincident with the beginning of Canadian studies at SAIS. Not that was the reason that I came, but nonetheless, it gave an added fillip to the experience, and that was reinforced by the presence of the Canadian Embassy right next door. now, funnily enough, I think that that situation is going to occur again, because I believe we're moving to a position right next door to the Canadian Embassy. But my question really is about the profession, how you see the professions for which you're turning out graduates. Certainly in my time, there was a general assumption that government, and I suppose the State Department particularly, were the target of many of perhaps a predominant number of the graduating class. I have the impression that business has emerged as a competing target, and that we now, or that SAIS now turns out a fair number of people for the business professions. Do you have some idea of, or in your own mind, because this must affect curriculum planning, what is the professional goal, or what are the set of professional goals, and in terms of their sort of proportional significance?
Sure. Well, so I'll stand to be corrected on the percentages, but I think the estimates are now roughly something like about 20% or so of our students go into some form of government service. I mean, there have been a number of changes, I think, probably since you were at the school. One of them is we have a much higher percentage of international students, of course, than we used to. But I think it's fair to say that there has been a secular trend to people having much more diverse kinds of career objectives. We still have a lot of students who do want to go into government. I think the last 4 years have challenged some of them on that. But the truth is, SAIS students want to do all kinds of things. Some of them want to go into business. Some of them want to go into international organizations. Some of them want to go into non-governmental organizations. It's really quite a spectrum. And of course, our mid-career students, many of them are looking, for time to pause, maybe shift careers, or prepare for the next step. So, I mean, a good example is Nick Schifrin, who's the diplomatic correspondent at the NewsHour, came to us after time as a radio correspondent, and he was wanted to spend a year kind of wrapping his head around what the world is like. I think it does make it a lot more challenging to plan a curriculum. I think, some of the things remain constants. We want people to have a very broad education. It is in some ways almost like we're a professional school, but it's in some ways a liberal education in international affairs. That is to say, people are exposed to economics. They're exposed to fairly traditional kinds of political thought. We're expanding our disciplinary reach to things like anthropology. We have a wonderful young anthropologist on staff, Nargis Bajoli, who's really terrific. At some point, I'd like us to have a psychologist. We're looking right now for an international lawyer. So people with those multiple perspectives and the ability to kind of pull them together and do problem solving. And that's why I think in this new curriculum, and I'm talking again, remember, just about the 64 credit degree, that's why we thought that it was critical to emphasize some things which are pretty much universal across all those areas. Data analytics. I mean, I'm learning data analytics to run a school. Never would have occurred to me, right? But I think anywhere you go, one of my former students, Garrett Burnson, was just appointed the deputy chief analytics officer for the Department of State. And of course, businesses and NGOs do that as well. Second big emphasis, leadership and ethical decision-making. Recognizing that there are that organizations are very different and require different leadership styles. I think many of us felt, and I know I feel this very keenly, it's one thing to say that you're preparing people to lead and to function effectively in organizations. It's another thing to really do it. And that's one of the things we're very much focusing on. And the third thing is practical experience. And that's why I think this practicum requirement that we've created is so important, you know, to really give students opportunities to go work. If they want to work for companies, fine. If they want to work for NGOs, fine. If they want to work for governments, fine. But you know, the opportunity to function in organizational settings. I'll add one other thing, which is that, you know, we're going from, again, going back probably to when you were at SAIS. I don't think the MIPP even existed, our mid-career degree program. The school basically had one degree, and that was, if not 100%, the student body was probably at least 90% or more. We are, I think, on a path in which the 64 credit degree, which will remain our flagship degree, or, you know, if you will, our platinum degree, where you get everything. It's now about 65% of the student body. It's probably going to go down to about 40%. And instead, we'll be having a lot of students who come to the school because they really want to go deep, deep, deep on international economics and finance. We're putting together a proposal for a master's degree, actually in strategic and intelligence studies. I mentioned the master's degree in global risk. And so we'll be giving more students who want things that are more focused that opportunity as well. The challenge for us, and this is one I think about a lot, is, well, how do you make sure that we're maintaining a common school identity and a common intellectual identity? And I think it's really important that we think carefully about the kinds of speakers we bring in, and how we advise our students so that they remain kind of broad.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Dean Cohen. We have time for one last question, and that one last question goes to Susan. Susan, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dean Cohen. I'm calling in from Denmark in the middle of the night. So I'm finding this very interesting to catch up on SAIS. Because I'm at a distance, and there's so many of us who actually are at a distance, we're experiencing an advantage of the virtual opportunity. And I noticed that Hopkins is having apparently quite some success with their virtual programs. Is it possible at all? Does it fit into the new curriculum? Would it work to have any of the lectures going on at SAIS be broadcasted virtually?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, all of our, and Christina can fill you in on more of this, all of our webinars and so on are accessible to people around the world. And if you're not getting access to or invitations to that, let us know, and we'll help you with that. Because, you know, for things like the COVID and World Order Conference, as I said, about 4,000 people, I'm sometimes stunned at emails that I'm getting from, you know, Singapore or Moscow, or, you know, they've seen something. But I think even more than that, and this is where, you know, your feedback as alumni can help. I think there's a tremendous hunger out there from our alumni in particular to stay connected. And look, we're now comfortable in this environment in ways that we never were before. Mm-hmm. And we're happy to do programming in this environment that allows people to remain connected to the school and to continue to benefit from the school. And I think the university gets that big time. So I'll give you just an example. I've developed this peculiar interest in Shakespeare, which is going to be the topic of my next book, and the topic of the online course I'm going to teach. But the president of the university asked me to teach a kind of a mini course for alumni over the summer. There's a program called Hopkins at Home. And I used it as a way of learning how to operate all these gizmos that I was making the faculty learn. And it was wonderful. You know, I had an alumnus who was in Greece. I had alumni who were in the middle of the United States. And they were interacting with one another. So absolutely. And I think for us, the challenge is figuring out what is it that we can give you? You know, what's the kind of level of programming you would like? And absolutely, we would like to be able to do that, because you know, and I'll wrap up with this, you know, our alumni are first, you know, you never leave the place as far as we're concerned. It's your SAIS educations came with a lifetime warranty. But you're the best possible advertisements for the school. You're the people who provide a lot of resources for us. You're the people who steer students our way. You're the people who can give us feedback on what is it that the world needs right now. So we want to be as deeply connected with you as possible. And like I said, I do believe in, you know, the school should continue to give to you even after you get that piece of parchment. So with that, I think I'm supposed to drop off. I'll just say thank you all for being here. I'm sorry I couldn't take more questions. There'll be more events. Next time we'll do this in person, and you know, we'll be able to adjourn to the bar afterwards. That's what I'll look forward to. And thank you all so much for being here, for being committed to this great institution. You know, I've had over 3 wonderful decades here, and having this position is really a career culmination for me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Cohen.
Yes, thank you. Before the Dean and Sean Ryan depart, we'd love to please have you all unmute and give a round of applause for all that he's been able to accomplish in a very challenging first year as Dean and for his time here today. So Dean Cohen, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I would like to now bring us into what is a very exciting component of the evening. We have Scott, who is class of 1995, that will be leading us in a cocktail lesson. And we hopefully, after we make our cocktail successfully, we'll take you all into your individual class breakout rooms where you will get a chance to connect with one another, to get excited about Saturday's programming where we hope to see you all return. But I want to echo a few things that Dean Cohen mentioned. So we are sharing all of the SAIS faculty and programs that are happening virtually right now in the bi-monthly SAIS Alumni Connect newsletter. So if you are not receiving that communication, I put the email in the chat where you can reach out to us. It's saisalum@jhu.edu. Please email us your current updated contact information, and we will be sure to make sure you're receiving that. And we are also, throughout the course of the year, planning updates for certain members of our donor society. So if you are a Dean Circle donor, or if you are a Christian Herder Society donor, you will be privy to some special updates on a regular basis from the Dean about the progress of the school in our transition towards 555 Pennsylvania. So please be on the lookout for more updates about that, more standard updates on the state of the school. And with that, Scott, I will turn it over to you.
Yes, I thought we're going to take a short bio break. Is that right? And then
yes, we're going to take. That's correct, everyone. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you to Sean Ryan and Dean Cohen. We really appreciate having you both here. So it is 7:31 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to take a break and return at about 7:37. We encourage everyone to get their cocktail ingredients ready for this great mixology lesson by Scott. And we'll see you all back here at 7:37 p.m. for our mixology lesson. Again, thank you all for being here. Sean Ryan, thank you so much. Dean Cohen, thank you so much. And we'll take a short break and see you back shortly.
Thanks, Laura.
Looks good, Scott.
Okay, yeah, I'm just getting the frame set.
Yeah,
Are
no.
you gonna have me on speaker view by chance?
I'm gonna put you on spotlight. I'll do that right now so you can get.
Okay, and that way. Ah,
Oh, that looks
Yeah,
really
that
great,
looks really
Scott.
good, Scott. That looks great.
good. How about the audio? I've got a little mic here.
Oh,
Sound
yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Oh,
Good?
you are all set up,
And
Scott.
Scott, did you get a haircut for us too?
I did. It's pretty bad, actually.
No, it looks pretty good. But and apologies, I forgot about the bio break in between our sessions.
Oh, no problem.
And you have my favorite tequila there. I have
Which one, the Casamigos or the Don Julio?
Casamigos all the way.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna.
I hope there are no Cuervo Gold fans out there. I'm gonna trash Cuervo Gold a little bit.
Angie's
All right, we're gonna mute and then we'll see you back shortly.
Yep, sounds good. Oh. Wait, I need some ice.
God, I have to say hi. It's James Burner.
James, how are you? I can't see who's on, so hey.
Yeah, all right. Just like give a quick shout out.
Be joining us later?
Yes, I'll be on in whatever, 3 minutes.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, no, I mean at the 8 o'clock. So we're doing this one, and then we're switching directly to the class of '95 one.
Oh, got it. I didn't even know that.
Awesome. Great to hear your voice. We need to catch up.
Yep. See you.
Hey, sweetie, can you? She's following me. No, she needs to go somewhere.
Hey, Scott. It's Billy Heron.
William, how are you,
How's
my
it going,
friend?
man? Good. I
Great.
was looking through pictures and trying to find a couple of good ones to post to that group album, but yeah, you were kind of doing the Matthew McConaughey thing, and it was hard to find one with your shirt on, you know. So.
I have a funny joke about that later. We'll yes.
We'll save that for later.
Kathleen posted one without the shirt on.
Yes, someone did that, and I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, we're gonna probably share the album later for a way to keep in touch with folks, because I've gotten 4 or 5 people that have submitted photos, which is great. We want to keep it going.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We don't want to delay too much. We know it's late in the evening, so we thank you all for sticking around and staying with us. We're going to look to see who's back. And then, Scott, we will turn it over to you for our lesson. So with that, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, welcome, everybody. Right on time. All right, I'll get started. Hopefully people can join. So I'm Scott Wilkerson. I'm class of 1995. I wanted to welcome all the classes, 70, 95, and 2010. So for this segment, I'm going to show you how to make an original Margarita cocktail. And Angie and the SAIS crew thought it might be fun to roll into the class happy hours with everyone, you know, feeling like we were back at SAIS. So, but don't worry, I will make, we can do a non-alcoholic version as well, or, you know, if it's just too much on a Thursday night, just make or grab whatever cocktail you like, and you can join along. But for those of you that want to do this step-by-step, I'm trying to make it so you can actually follow. So, so I'm going to explain kind of how I got into tequila a little bit just as a setup. But before I do that, I just want to make sure for those of you who are going to follow step-by-step that you have what you need. So hopefully you saw from the SAIS folks the list of ingredients. I know it's a little intimidating, but there's only 5 things you need to make a really good margarita. And if you have those on hand, great. I'll show you how to do it. If not, don't worry about it. So one would be to have a cocktail glass of some sort. I have like a rocks glass here or a margarita glass. I'm going to make my wife a cocktail as well. So I'm going to make 2, but you can make 1 or 2, and we'll walk you through step by step. You need some ice. You definitely want to have some ice for the drink. You want some tequila, and we'll talk about that, unless you're doing a virgin version. You want to have some lime juice. Could be fresh squeezed or just, you know, concentrate is perfectly nice. You want to have some sort of orange liqueur, like I like the Cointreau, but you can do triple sec or Grand Marnier or whatever. And then lastly, you just need something to measure, unless you want to wing it. But, you know, it could be a jigger or a shot glass or, you know, a measuring cup from your kitchen, anything like that. Okay? So those are the things you need to have to make a margarita, at least a real margarita. If you want to be fancy and you want to kind of make the exact drink that I'm making, a couple other things you might want. You might want to have a cocktail shaker, just helps to strain it and shake it. I'm going to add some orange juice to my drink, which kind of gives a little extra citrus flavor, which I like. I also might put a little lemon juice in there, and I like to put a little soda water as well. And then lastly, I'm going to put some jalapeno pepper in my drink because I like it really spicy, but that's up to you. If you have a pepper or anything spicy, bring that along. So those are the ingredients, again, for those of you following along. So, and again, if this is all too much, just grab a beer or a soda and join us. So as you're getting the ingredients together, let me just give you a really quick update, like why tequila? Why am I so into tequila? So, you know, I think like most of us, I kind of have a really bad memory of tequila from college in particular, but also even, I guess, from SAIS. I don't really remember, but the stuff we drank in our 20s, really what I've later learned really isn't real tequila. If you're like me, most of us, you know, you order a shot of tequila, it's probably this, you know, when we're in our 20s, Cuervo Gold, which, you know, no offense to the Cuervo people, but I later learned actually isn't 100% tequila. It's actually what's called a mixto, which is, it's only 50% tequila. The rest is like artificial sweeteners and fillers, and there's like grain alcohol. It's, you know, which explains a lot of why we didn't have such a good experience with it. So I'm going to recommend you use something that says 100% agave on it. So anyway, I guess about 5 years after I graduated SAIS, I was traveling a lot for work to the West Coast. And I kind of became reacquainted with a buddy of mine who owns a saloon or a tavern, I guess, in the Mission District called Elixir. And I got to give him a lot of credit. He actually went to Thunderbird, but still a good guy. And he started bringing me along to these tequila tasting things. This is right when tequila was starting to take off here in the US as a spirit. And, you know, I started going with him and, you know, we try different drinks and try different tequilas, and I really started to get into it. And, you know, when I came home, I would make my wife a drink, and then I started making friends drinks. And before you know it, like you know, I have people like banging on my door saying, hey, I need a margarita. So be careful. But anyway, that's how I kind of came to appreciate tequila. And so anyway, back to present day. Let's make a drink. So what we're going to do, what we're first going to do is let's fill our cocktail glasses with ice. Let's kind of fill it, you know, healthy amount of ice in there. And I'm going to do the same for my ice here. So you want to fill that glass almost to the top with ice. And if you're making your drink directly in the cup, you know, you're good with that. I'm going to use a shaker. So I'm going to fill my shaker about to maybe 1/3 full with ice. So we're going to do that. Sorry about the sound effects. Hopefully everybody's tracking along here. All right, so we got our ice in there. All right, so next we want to put the tequila in. So like I said, 100% agave tequila. It should say it on the label. I'm going to use a Blanco tequila, which means it's not aged in a barrel. It's sort of, so it's clear. It has no influence of oak or the wood or anything. It's really clean. If you smell it, it's like floral, almost like citrusy vanilla, really nice. I'm partial to the Casamigos. That's the George Clooney brand, which he sold to Diageo for, it's like $2 billion, some obscene amount. I also really like the Don Julio Blanco. You can use any kind. There's Reposados and Viejos. They're more aged. So actually, just the first rule of thumb, I think, with the you know, with any margarita, that just a very simple formula you can remember is half tequila, 1/4 tart, and 1/4 sweet. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, just remember that. Half tequila, 1/4 tart, and 1/4 sweet, and you're good to go. So that the sweet and the tart kind of balance each other out, and then they complement the flavor of the tequila. So so we're going to start with the tequila. So so I'm going to make 2 drinks. So I'm going to do 4 1.5-ounce shots. So they're kind of strong, but they're really good. So if you're making 1 drink, just do 2. So I'm doing 4 shots of the tequila. And then we got to add our tart, right? So we said kind of 2 to 1. So we're going to do 2 shots of this lime juice. I like this Key West lime juice, but any lime juice will do. So 2 shots. 1, 2. All right. Now we got to add our sweet, right? So I like orange juice in there just a little bit to give it some additional citrus. So we're going to do 1 shot of orange juice. So that counts towards our sweet part. And then we're going to do 1 shot of the Cointreau, which is a really nice, smell it, it's an orange liqueur, it's really nice. We're going to do a shot of that, okay? And then, like I said, we tend to like ours a little more tart, so I'm going to add just a 1/2 shot of lemon juice just to kind of give it a little more tartness. And then we're just about done. We are going to, what am I missing? I like to throw in a few, I don't know if you can see this, but a few slices of jalapeno pepper. You want to get the seeds in there. That's what makes it spicy. And that's why you want to have a strainer. So just throw that in there. Tap it. You want to shake it rigorously. Kind of mix it all up. All right. And then we're ready to pour. So pour this. Now, I don't fill it all the way to the top, and I'll tell you why in a sec, but leave a little room at the top. And a little trick that I learned from my mixologist friend is just top it off with a teensy bit of soda water, not tonic water, but soda water. It just kind of lightens up the drink a little bit, kind of gives a little bit of texture, flavor. I'm going to stir that up. And I'm just going to garnish it with a lime wheel, kind of make it look fancy. I don't know if you can see that. All right. And The same for this one. So we are ready to toast. And I just wanted to do a quick toast to all of us who had a wonderful experience at SAIS. I know I did. Class of 70, class of 95, class of 2010. And to all the future students of SAIS and staff and administration, here's to many, many more years of a great program. Cheers to SAIS. Prost, salud, na zdrowie. Cheers. Enjoy.
Thanks, Scott. It looks really great.
Cheers.
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 Cheers, Scott.
All right.
Ganbei. Ganbei.
Well,
is anyone able to successfully make it, or is just me?
God, I followed you. This is Kevin Carr from the class of 2010. I saw agave was on the list. What do you recommend with agave?
So I didn't want to get too fancy. The agave can either replace the Cointreau, or you can go like half and half. But it's basically another way to get sweet. It's a blue agave sort of syrup. You know, if you like it a little sweeter, you can like drizzle some on top. You can use it in place of the Cointreau. It's supposed to be like less glycemic, whatever, but it's all
This is terrific. Thank you.
Enjoying it? Cheers.
Hey, Scott, it's John Gaffney from 95.
Hey, John.
Hi, I do them a fair amount. One thing I found, if you like a little bit of smoky taste, is a tiny little bit of mezcal, which gives it, again, it's kind of almost like a Mexican single malt, but makes it, if you like that smoky flavor, it's good.
I'm a huge fan, and I negotiated with Angie, and she said I had to keep it simple. So I know most people don't have mezcal lying around, but for class of 95, we're going to do another one, and I'm going to make mine with mezcal. So couldn't agree more.
Well, I want to thank you, Scott, for what was a really great demonstration. We saw quite a few of you, Kevin, Kathleen, and Scott for, I'm sorry, there was someone else that I saw making their drink in tandem with you. So thank you for the lesson. Right now, we are going to have you all break out into your class-specific socials. So take your cocktails or your drink on hand and be ready to interact and engage with your class. So 2010, you will be heading into your own breakout. The class of 1995, you will go into your breakout for a second drink demonstration by Scott. And then class of 1970, if you guys are still hanging in there with us, we will have you guys head into your class breakouts as well. But thank you everyone for joining us. And we truly, truly, truly hope that we will see you all during Saturday's programming as well. But now let's kick back into the less formal part of this and have fun.
Thank you.
Well done, Scott.
Thank you so much,
Well done.
everyone. I'm going to open up your breakout rooms now. You're going to join your breakout room by pressing the button that says Join Breakout Room. So look forward to everyone seeing in your rooms. Thank you.
Do you mind if I just do it out here?
Amanda, what class are you so I can assign you?
Hi, yeah, sorry, I just joined.
That's okay.
2010.
2010. All right, I'm going to put you there right now. There you go.